Well, welcome to Radical Books and Politics. It is my honor and pleasure to have Panni Loh, who is the first artist on the show. It's such a pleasure. And you are listening to Adam Gottlieb of One Love, who has been nominated for Best Local Album in Chicago by the Chicago Reader. And I'm asking that you please vote for his album. It is amazing. I'm going to tweet that out again and, put it out. So we're streaming live on Radical Books and Politics on YouTube, as well as Twitter, and Pen in the City, a creative writing group for all. Welcome, viewers. Please ask questions. So, Panni, why don't you tell people about yourself?
Yeah. So, well, I live in Britain. So, yeah, I'm quite a way away. And I was born in London, but my father was Malaysian Chinese and my mother was white English. So I've lived in, grown up in this place that I occupy, which is like having the benefits of both cultures. Although, of course, it never felt like that as a child. But as I've got older, I feel like it's a real benefit to have two heritages.
Well, three technically, right? So Malaysian, Chinese, and British. That's fantastic. So I'll ask you a question. When you tell people, how do you identify yourself?
I usually say that I'm British Chinese.
Nice. That's fantastic. And I can't imagine. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna stop going off on tangents. But as you were growing up, were your parents decent cooks?
Well, the thing was, I just grew up with my mum. My father was stayed over in Malaysia. So, but she was a fantastic cook, and she was a wonderful lady. She used to do these meals. She had this cookery book called Around the World in 80 Dishes.
Oh, fantastic.
So we'd have like maybe a starter from Iceland, main course from China, a dessert from Japan. And like so many family members used to come around for her meals.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's the kind of person I am too. My mother was the nucleus. She's still alive, but that's what it was about, communal cooking. And the neighbors would come to her house and everybody wanted her food, her traditional food, That's fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about Panni's art, and she's going to read part of her story, which is actually an amazing piece. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your art, maybe the medium you use, or if you want to show some of your art in England there, and then I can show some of the fantastic art that you published in Unity, Volume 1, a Magical Realism Anthology. And so we can do a little bit of both.
Yeah, sure. So I wasn't quite sure how it's going to work on here.
Let's go organic.
I'll just, I've got some prints because they were easier to hold up.
Mm-hmm.
See if they show up. It's kind of like the opposite way around.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I've been doing this for a while and I still have it. Oh my gosh, that is gorgeous.
So this one is called Love Kernel. And it's, a lot of my paintings are very much about connection. So connection between humans and the natural world. So there's lovers there. There's a mother with the children. I've got another one here. This is called Earth.
Oh, that is beautiful.
The mother with the babies there. I actually went over to Arizona quite a while ago.
That's where I'm from.
You're from Arizona. Oh, well, I was really inspired by the rocks there.
Oh, so you were in the northern part of Arizona.
Yeah. So
I tried something, Panni. Let me see if I can put you full speaker. Let me see if I can do that. Yeah. No, it doesn't quite work out that way. Nagas. I was trying to make you the primary view. So, what part of Arizona were you from?
No, I was just there for a while.
Right.
So I went to Sedona, the Grand Canyon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I found it a really lovely time, and that you feel really enclosed by the rocks. So that inspired the painting.
Oh, it's a gorgeous area. It's very spiritual. I've never hiked the Grand Canyon, but I've always wanted to. So the mother with the baby, is that a common theme in your art?
Yeah, quite often. That's the theme there, and also like the lovers and that connection there. But there's always some element of the natural world mostly that I put into the paintings, because I think more than ever now we've got to like really respect the natural world and take care of how we're behaving and
absolutely.
Honor the natural world. I've done some other paintings that are, I don't know if you can see this on there. I'm not quite sure how it's showing up.
Oh, is that London? That is gorgeous.
No, this is Sheffield where I live. This is a view from my old house.
Oh, wow. That is phenomenal.
Chapel there.
That is beautiful.
Sky is sort of showing up a bit different in the colours, but you can see all the city lights and everything.
Mm.
So, yeah, and this was actually exhibited in an exhibition in Qingdao. There was in China, there was a biennale there. So it went
and that was an oil painting, Penny, is that right?
They're all acrylics. So that was in this catalogue in the Qingdao Biennale.
What an honor. Fantastic.
Yeah. And then I've had things, I think, in Mongolia as well. So that's the catalogue from there. Yeah, all over the world. But it was a very exciting time in Mongolia.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
We went to go and stay in a ger, you know, like the yurts for a couple of nights. Nice. And so we saw a Nadam, a horse racing festival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just really fantastic. And I think all that traveling has inspired a lot of my stories because I've been exhibited in Russia as well. Yeah, all over the place. Really.
That's amazing. And of course, you go where you exhibit. So you spent some time in Russia as well.
Yeah, I did, and then that's what inspired the story in Unity as well.
Oh my gosh, I've always wanted. I wanted to try where I've been, but Russia is one of the places I hope to go one day before I die. You know, once this pandemic is over. So yeah. So what? Why don't you? Well, let me show you one of these prints too, because this is beautiful. I meant to flag these. I was telling viewers in another show that the art looks so gorgeous, even in black and white. I'm really excited because Volume 2 is going to be in color, or there's going to be a color version for people to buy. I haven't decided if I'm going to have enough coin to, but even like this, it is so phenomenal. You know, obviously in color is better defined, but it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, I've got the color one here actually.
Oh, see that? That is just amazing. Blue's my favorite color too, by the way. So that's why I'm like, yes, in color. Yeah. That's amazing.
This was actually inspired because a friend of mine had some musicians who were friends, and they needed to earn some money, so she invited us round to their garden.
Nice.
So that we could hear them playing, and then we pay them for playing. And
that's awesome.
And so the young girl was the violinist, and I just sat there painting, and that was
wonderful.
By it.
Here's the other one, Midnight.
I've got some big paintings as well. Oh, you want to show that one? Yeah.
No, I'll wait a little bit.
Okay, I just wanted to show you.
Go ahead.
I think you can. Just trying to get used to which way round I've got to stand.
Oh, I haven't gotten used to it yet.
this one here is called The Spirit of Our Ancestors.
Oh,
so that's like paying homage to my Chinese ancestors. And the other ones here, they're pretty big. I think you can just about see.
Oh, wow, that is gorgeous. That's a dragon, it looks like, right?
Yeah, so this one's called An Opera Through Time and Space. Because there's this festival that happens in Malaysia called the Night of the Hungry Ghost. And what that is a bit like the Day of the Dead in Mexico, where they have these big stalls that nobody goes in, but there's very elaborate cakes and all sorts of things in there for the ghosts. And they also have opera stands where there's a whole troupe from China, a musical ensemble playing, and they play classical operas.
Right.
But there's nobody watching because they're just playing it for the ghosts.
How interesting. My students were telling me about that because we studied Day of the Dead in my U.S. Latin American literature class. And we watched some Disney movie like the Dia de los Muertos movie. But what they were saying is that I guess in their village where they were from, the festivity lasted a month. And I was like, wow, that's a long time. For us, maybe a week, just because in Mexican tradition, it's become like fighting over who's going to go to whose house for Thanksgiving. So they'll go to the mother-in-law's, graveyard for one weekend, and then the other weekend they'll go to the other. But it's quite elaborate, and a very different understanding of death. That's not frightening or Halloweenish,
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
amazing. That is wonderful. That really is. So mostly it's cakes and music. Do people put like the favorite things that the ghosts used to like to eat, or is it mostly cakes?
Well, what you'll see in some towns, I'm sure this wouldn't be allowed in Britain, but I've been to some towns where what they do in the evening, just along the street, they have little fires in the road, and they're burning things for the people.
How cool!
You know, like paper money,
Right.
could be paper boats, paper cars, all sorts of things like that. So when you come from Britain, where there would loads of health and safety, that wouldn't be allowed.
Right, that wouldn't fly.
Like, wow, you know, because there's all these little fires going on, and that.
Right.
And I actually wrote about some of those ceremonies in this book, The Living and the Dead. This was from the University of Bradford in England, and
they. Do you want to read a bit from there?
Oh,
if you want.
I could read a little bit if you'd like me to.
Sure, we have time.
Okay.
30 to 45 minutes, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, let me just see. So bearing in mind,
we have one viewer. Feel free to ask a question or chat on YouTube.
So bearing in mind that this is it's about death, of course, so I hope this doesn't upset people, but I do see that death is part of life.
Right.
You know, so it's a bit of a strange time, of course, at the moment.
Definitely.
Things, but this is what this book is about, so it goes with the territory. Curls of scented incense wafted around us. Black framed photographs of her Peranakan parents, her father a Baba, her mother a Myonya, hung high on whitewashed walls. Some stern, some serene, their faces began to move and merge as if mouthing words to us. Transfixed, I began to sway with the movement of the spiraling vapours. My friend caught me. You need water? I shook my head and attempted to stand up straighter. At that moment, the black-dressed Buddhist priest arrived banging a drum. Sarah's ancestors' mouths closed. Like ravens, the attendants arrived to move her into the garden. We bumped into each other, making way. They raised her up as if she was no heavier than a lightweight mattress. Outside, the white-suited family stood next to the funeral box. In front of me, Sarah's photo, surrounded by candles, sunbursts of flowers and fruits, adorned an altar. The hot smell of the pineapple, bananas and oranges mixed with glowing 4-foot incense poles that exuded clouds of pungent smoke around us. I could hardly breathe. I wished I hadn't worn a scarf. Although light, the gossamer fine silk printed with Sarah's painting sticking to my neck. The priest began to chant, shaking bells. He turned to the three of us. I was in the centre. He gave me a tray of drinks. I gave one to each of my friends and took one myself. We were about to drink them when the attendants grabbed them from us and placed them back on the tray I was holding. My two friends looked down, their arms firm by their sides. My hands shook, rattling the tiny glasses. I wanted to apologise and let everyone know that I'd never been to a funeral like this before. The chanting priest helpers lifted my arm so that I held the tray in the air. At last I understood this was an offering, not a toast to be consumed.
That is amazing. You have such a beautiful reading voice. It's so natural. I was I can tell you stories, but it sounds lovely. And I've noticed that even in the story that you had in Unity, Volume 1 of Magical Realism Anthology, your imagery so, I mean, it's just gorgeous. You experience it, right? And I think that something about the way you see the world as an artist informs your writing, which informs your art, and it's just such a wonderful combination. Just amazing, you know. It's so well done. I love the imagery of the smoke and just it just, you can see it, you know. So that is amazing. So let's talk about the environment, because we can talk a little bit about politics. You had mentioned earlier. I know that's a bad transition. That is called a terrible transition. But you had said that we have to find a way to live differently in the world. Could you talk a little more about that? Because it seems like it's very much a theme in your art and seems to be part of what informs you politically.
Yeah, I think humans have, not everybody, of course, but as a human race, we've got into this unfortunate place where we're consuming rather than paying homage and honouring what it is we're consuming,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it goes to things from the earth. You know, people just take for granted so much that they have in their lives. I think, if anything, that's been one of the good things about the pandemic, is people have had to stay home more, so people have gone more inward looking. And
Right.
as long as people don't watch the news too much, I think there's been an appreciation more of the natural world. Whether it's in England, we've been allowed, at the moment we're in a lockdown again, but we're allowed to go out for a walk every day. So this is where there's nothing else that people can do much. They're going out for walks, appreciating the trees, the paths, the air, and all the first lockdown, it was our springtime, so there was all the beautiful flowers coming into bloom. People were posting photographs of all these things.
Right.
So it feels like there's like a consciousness that's sort of like getting at least agitated a bit, where people are thinking more about those things, but it needs to go a lot further, of course.
Of course, and I think there's a lot to be said. I'm so proud of and I don't like to generationalize struggle, but I'm so proud of the youth and the consciousness and the movement that they were growing before and during the pandemic. And I agree with them. There will be no earth for them. There will be no world for my children that are 11 and 5 years old. And I agree 100%. My husband is actually better than I am. He's very much about not over consuming, and he likes to cook food like down to like the little bit, like don't overdo it, don't know, and it counters Mexican tradition because we tend to be very abundant with our meals. But there's something to be said even with that. And at the same time, what we're very privileged because I teach for a living and I make a good salary. My husband's a stay-at-home husband. We have an amazing relationship. But what we realized that there's an overabundance of goods. The pandemic hasn't hurt our consumption one bit. You know what I mean? And so I think about the people that are starving, that don't have enough, that don't have access to healthcare, that there is enough for everybody to eat if people just take what they need. And I know Americans get criticized a lot for the size of portions, and that is the truth, right? We've seen it even in takeout, and I know right now the restaurants are having a hard time, but if you order one thing of arroz con carne, like rice and meat, it's enough to feed the whole family. You think about that, Panni, and it's like, damn, So I think there's something to be said for this resurgence of appreciating nature, appreciating family life in a way that wasn't before. Because my husband and I are very busy, and we spend more time together. We talk a lot more. We watch movies together. We cook together. We're homebodies now. I'm gonna have a really hard time going back to work in person. I'm telling you what. But there's something to be said for not running around, in the city of Chicago, like you're in the car, the CTA or whatever, taxi, you name it, up and down, 45 minutes to get to places, and it's just a lot of gas consumption, a lot of unnecessary, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot. So I think that will hopefully also help people consider how much they drive, too. Um, so it's a lot, but I think that's wonderful, and I think that's a message that no matter what struggle we're in, we always have to put the environment along with it and connect it, right? And that's something that it's really has come. Like I knew it, but I know it better now, and I live it better now than I did before. You know what I'm saying? Have a long way to go, but for sure, I think that's amazing. And that's what the youth are calling for too. It's for them. It's a no-brainer.
We've got to do something, haven't we, ourselves? We can't just leave it to them. Is that what a terrible legacy?
Not at all, not at all. And so that's the thing. I mean, even I remember I had a semester 2 semesters ago, maybe. It must have been right before the pandemic, where the students all wrote the research papers on the environment, and their main concern was the plastics in the water, the microplastics. And it was, I mean, and the only thing was that some of the students were getting into despair, and I had to tell them, look, you can't get nihilistic. You have to understand that we do have the technology to solve these issues. if our priorities were different. And it took them a while to be like, oh, because they were getting into this despair where, oh, well, it's all fucked. And it's like, no, it's not. You know, we can cooperate. So this is one too. I love this one. This is Midnight.
Oh yes, yeah,
gorgeous. But no, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you're an artist of conscience and that you have you know, the writing. I caught the environmentalism in the story in Unity as well. I caught part of that with the recycling and the trash, and so I thought that was well done too. And I don't know if you can talk about this story a little bit. You said you were in Russia, and that's what inspired it.
Yeah, so I was in the Golden Ring of Russia.
Well, what is that?
So I was staying in Moscow, but we went out to go and stay in this artist house that had been bequeathed by an artist some time ago, a Russian artist, for artists to go and stay. But by the time we got there, they'd not been able to upkeep that really old house, which was shame. They built some other place, but they still had the same principles that artists could go and stay there and enjoy the place to create art. But they had created a little gallery of some of his work, but also his wife's, which I was really impressed by, that all that time ago he'd honoured his wife as an artist. There's a lot of women artists in time and history, you know, they've kind of got like glossed over.
Of course.
You know, so that was really nice to see. But one of the most memorable times was the Russian artist who'd arranged for us to go there. She took us to go and sit by the Lake Plishevo, which is in the story I've written. And it was such a beautiful experience that I wanted to write about there. But the character in it came sometime later. It's when I was in a photographic exhibition, and there was just this photograph of this one old lady that just kind of arrested me, my attention. You know how sometimes things like that can happen, and I just found myself standing there for ages just looking at her, and I just started imagining what her life was. She wasn't even Russian, you know, the actual photo.
Sure.
But that's what we do, isn't it?
Right.
Kind of like magnify these different things and put them together. So that's how the story came about, and with the consciousness as well. I just want to say, of course, although I have a concern about the environment, this doesn't mean that I do everything right, because I know I don't.
Who does?
You know, I know there's lots of things I need to change as well, and there's lots of things that we partake of just as humans without realizing where the roots come from as well sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was telling somebody, we're still in this economic system and it's consumer oriented, right?
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to fight against it. You know, even God, don't get me started on Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is a vile company, but every now and then I got to have a Coke with my steak. And that is a problem. I used to be vegan for like 6 years. And then I got pregnant, and so I couldn't uphold those principles anymore. It's just hard, you know. But I think it takes effort. It takes effort to counter the messaging, constant messaging, right? Same with technology. I know what it means to produce an iPhone, what it means in terms of labor. But the motion is to get the next one, you know.
Yeah.
So, my phone is probably ancient by these days, and I'm fine with it. It's fully functional. So why don't you read part of that story? I was so enamored. Oh my gosh, I love the magical realism in it. It's such a good piece, you know. So thank you for that backdrop.
Thank you. That's fun. The bit I was going to read doesn't particularly speak about the environmentalism. Is that okay?
Fine. It's all, the whole thing is so beautiful, you know.
Lovely. Okay, so I'll just read it. It's called Artist Sketches. I sit up and look out of the window. The blue rock glows in the starlight. No one knows where it came from or when, but for centuries, offerings were set upon it at the rare full moon of the summer solstice. I feel under my bed for my jars of sauerkraut, pickled cucumber and salted fish, my best preserves. Perfect for such an occasion. I stand up, grab a candle and some matches. My door creaks open to the sound of the same music I could hear in my dreams. I squint across to the lake shore and see a dancing figure playing a flute around the sacred rock. It's been a long time since Alexei gave up on the locals and went to live in the woods. I prefer the light of the brookside. We both accepted our solitude. He's already set a candle, black bread, eggs and fruit, the perfect accompaniment for my gifts. I smile as I get closer, ready to suggest we light a fire and warm some meduvka on my stove. But as he turns around, I see it is the young man wearing a long cape.
I love that. That was actually one of, I love the whole story, but that was an amazing turn, and I mean, it's so it's so much, you can interpret that in so many ways, but I think when we were editing this piece, we're like, is first of all, is Alexei real? Is it a figment of the narrator's imagination? Is the narrator reliable? And what does this young person represent? It was just really well done. There's a lot of depth to that story. Again, what I love about it was just the imagery. You also tend to be a writer that you don't waste words, which I know is difficult to get to that level of craft. But I noticed that you must spend a lot of time in your sentences. Is that true?
I do. That really amuses me to say that I'm a writer. Because of the fact that in the past sometimes I've written loads too much, and then it's like having to cut down, and it seems to be the process I have to go through is to like sometimes write loads and then cut it down. Yeah.
No, it's beautifully crafted. I'm in the same position now that I finished a novel. I revised it about 4 times, and I know it's gonna hurt, but it's gonna have to happen because there are just some chapters in there that are completely unnecessary. And it's gonna have to come out. Save them for another time. But well, tell the viewers about your writing process. So I hear that you write loads and loads. Are you the kind of writer that you map out your story, or do you kind of develop your characters first? What's your writing process like?
It's a more kind of magical process for me. Like when I did my MA writing at Sheffield Hallam University, I had a great tutor, Conor O'Callaghan, and he's an Irish writer. He's a poet, but he's written novels as well. Mm-hmm. And he used to just say to me, "Panni, just write, just let it go." And he knew this was the best way with me. There would be some lecturers who were like, "You've got to plan it out, and you've got to know where it's going to." For me, it was like the characters came alive as I was writing, and then it all started coming, and then I'd go back over it, and I have to do all the editing and making sure I've got all the grammar correct and all the tenses. So I have to be careful about those things, making sure I've got the tenses right and the right tenses. So that's more of the process for me. It's more like I get there's a spark of an idea, and I just start writing.
Nice.
And it is quite magical because I'm not sure perfectly where it's going to go, but the story starts telling itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start feeling, that thing when they say when you're in flow, the time just goes.
Yep.
And I just love that feeling, whether it's with painting or with writing.
Yes, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I have a similar writing process. I can't plan things. I'll limit my creativity. It just kills it, right? There are exceptions, but I do spend an awful lot of time in the world getting to know the characters. And sometimes, even with my theory papers and my essays, I'll think about a topic for a long, long time. And then once I sit, it's practically already done, right? But Anne Lamott has this metaphor. I don't think it was hers. It was another writer, where you're in the car and you're driving at night and all you see what's in front of the headlights. You're getting somewhere. You're not quite sure about the road or even the map, but you're going to get there. And that's what I think it's like for me as well. I don't like over planning. I can't do it. In fact, one of the stories I wrote not so long ago, I had a Final Destination in mind. The character went to Canada instead, and I was like, "What the hell just happened?" You know, you were supposed to go to Mexico, but see, you gotta let the story go in the direction it's in and trust it, because, like you say, there will be that time to revise and make it coherent and work on those structural issues. Um, but yeah, and I think sometimes writers kill not overkill it. They slow down the process by trying to overmap things. And there are those that are real successful at mapping. I'm just not one of them. But I love that what you're talking about, that energy, that flow. I actually call it word vomiting because it's very rare that I get writer's block. This pandemic has been horrible, horrible. Um, I hadn't been able to write until very recently. I actually wrote a poem that I submitted for publication. It actually got accepted as Spillwords, but it was terrible. I don't know how this pandemic has treated you. Have you found that it's inhibited your artistic process, or has it actually been better because you've been home?
I think it's changed from how things were at the beginning. At the beginning, I felt really upset with the
Mm-hmm.
enormity and the impact of what was about to come, when it was just the beginning. And so I think at first, in England, we used to have a thing where there was one night a week, everybody would go on their doorstep and clap for all the
Yeah,
NHS
perfect.
workers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go back in the house and just sit and cry, because it was
Mm-hmm.
not just because of the impact of seeing neighbours. It was because of why we were doing that, and that there was people seriously ill and dying in hospital. So for a while it took me, I couldn't really seem to paint, I couldn't really seem to write.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started doing an online yoga class.
Mm-hmm.
That really helped me. And that yoga teacher was doing some classes in the geometry with the drawings for the yantras, a bit like the mandala type
Mm-hmm.
drawings. So I started doing those,
Cool.
and then she just tell you how to draw it out, and then you just painted it on your own. That process then took me into getting back into my painting again, and then the writing.
Good. That's wonderful.
And then I started really and my husband built me the studio. He finished it just before lockdown.
Oh, wow.
So this has been really good to have this kind of like sacred space.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That is wonderful. Yeah, we don't have a lot of sacred space in this apartment, but I have my office. No, that's good to hear. And I think there are still people that are still grappling, and I'm not sure what advice to give them other than to commiserate sometimes, and just encourage them. And what I tell people is, if you can't write and you can't read, try an audible book, which is what I ended up having to do. I listened to books, listened to music, watched movies that were interesting, learned about other stuff. Still did writing related things, like I worked on designing books and whatnot, but it wasn't quite the same, right? It's not the same as getting into that like you say, that flow, that energy that's so life giving. Um, but yeah, I think at the pandemic, and then I was also getting jealous because I see these writers like book after book after book after book, and I'm like, damn, like you could have built a whole career during the pandemic. But it's just different people responding in different ways, for sure. And then I'm also very impressed by the people that are reading like a book a day, and I'm like, hot damn, how do you have time to raise your kids, go to work, and you're like reviewing books every damn day? It's amazing. You must not be sleeping. This is what's happening. You're not getting any sleep. I admire that, and for sure, for sure. Well, Penny, this has been amazing. I don't know if you want to share another art piece before we close out, or you have something else you want to share? Maybe.
I'm not. It's quite. I'm not quite sure. Oh, I've got another piece just here.
Is it a work in progress or is it finished?
No, it's finished. This is a print of it.
Oh, look at that, Penny. That is gorgeous.
So this is a painting that's actually sold.
Nice.
So, and the lovely lady whose husband bought it for us, she sends me photographs every now and again. It's in her lounge. So it's called The Language of Hope.
Wow. And is that a forest, or that is just, I love the color.
it's abstract, but
Ah.
it's kind of like got that forest feel, hasn't it?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations on that sale. Well,
And I just wanted to sort of say as well that I've been running a children's art club and online.
really?
And
Can
those,
my kids join? How old?
yeah, so they're like between 5 and 12.
Oh, that's perfect. Are you still taking students or is it full?
Yeah, there's like people book through event. Can you get Eventbrite? Does
Yeah.
that? Yeah. I wasn't quite sure if it was in the States as well.
Yeah.
It's on Eventbrite, and it's called Painting Birds for Children and Young People.
Okay, I'll put that on here. Oh my gosh, that is fantastic.
And so next week we're going to paint a kingfisher.
Oh my gosh.
So just because they'd like it, I'll just mention some of the children's names, if that's okay.
Please do.
Jasmine, Ariana, Faith, Jess, Martha, George, Daisy, Charlotte, Anthony, Robin, Phoebe, Jasper, Elena, and I think there's others. So if I've forgotten your names, sorry about that.
Oh, amazing.
I'm sure they would love to have children from the States.
Oh my gosh. You know, my son, it talk about being artistic during the pandemic. Well, he broke the iPad, unfortunately, but he's been drawing usually Pokemon, but he like morphs him, and he's like, look mom, look what I'm working on now. I'm making this 3D keychain for my project, and it's gonna have this and the other. And I did get them paint sets, but he's really into.
I'm having some trouble.
Sorry, my Alexa thinks I'm talking to her. Shut up, Alexa. My husband brought the devil into the house, and now I'm addicted to it, I swear. But really, really into that. Just drawing with the iPad, and my daughter likes to paint. But that's wonderful. I'll be sure to tell them. So if you have children between the ages of 5 and 12, painting birds with children and young people, look it up on Eventbrite. I'll put the link. So, Panni, do you have any advice for writers or artists that are just starting out?
I think one of the big things is, there seems to be a bit of an echo.
It's a what?
There seems to be a bit of an echo.
No, you're fine.
Okay, I'll carry on. One of the things I think is about being part of a community, workshopping with your writing and also your art, with people that you can trust, who give constructive criticism. We have to face the reality that unfortunately there are some sad people who want to pull you down. So I'd say avoid them, but go with people who are going to give you, and also you don't want people who are just going to say everything you do is great.
Of course.
So I've been in a really great writing group that we formed on the MA called the Seven Quills. So hello, Seven Quills, because they're all lovely women. And Sheffield, where I live, has 7 hills. It's a very hilly city. It's the one thing it's got in common with Rome.
Nice.
It's on 7 hills. So we called ourselves the Seven Quills. So we still meet up every now and again online, to connect. But there's other writing workshops that I go to, groups, where I think workshopping your writing with others is good. And the same with the art as well.
Right.
But again, where there's a lot of positivity around, I think that's really important. And just keep it flowing. That's what I've been really proud of with all the children, that despite all the tension and worry there is probably about the pandemic, that they still come to the class and they do the painting. And for that time, like this week, we painted an owl.
Aww.
So they're just thinking about an owl, and the energy of an owl and how the wings go, the noise it makes, and so I think that's a really important thing. But just keep it flowing in whatever way you can, and don't be scared of the paper or the paints. Just start making marks. And I don't always like what I do first. It's doing it again and just keep doing it.
Yeah.
We have something in England called the Workers' Education Association, and I run a class for them as well for adults. And in that, there's complete beginners and there's really experienced artists as well. And it's just people just make art,
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. So don't stop. That's great advice. And I definitely if gonna have to put those links on here. So that is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Penny, for that great advice. Where can people find you on their social media or your socials?
So on Facebook, I've got Panni Loh artist page. That's a public one. On Instagram, it's at Panni Loh. And I've got a website, panniloh.com. And I've
I
for
think I
art.
just spelled it. Let me see. Let me see if I got that right. PANILOH on
Yes.
Instagram. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Penny, it's been a fantastic pleasure. I love seeing your art and getting to know you as an environmentalist. And definitely check out that Eventbrite, Painting Birds with Children and Young People for ages 5 to 12. And have an amazing day. I always say this as I close out. Do what you love to the max. It sounds like you're doing what you love to the max and inspiring others. Have a fantastic, fantastic day, Penny. Thank you again. It's an honor.
Thank you very much, Tessu. It's really nice to meet you. Yeah.
Fantastic.